As Parsha Shmos continues, the Torah quickly turns to Moshe as being chosen by the Rebbeinu Shalom as the Manig Yisrael, and the one who would ultimately lead the Bnei Yisrael out of Galus Mitzrayim. When introducing the Manig Yisrael, you might expect a lengthy biography of Moshe Rabbeinu, perhaps an account of his upbringing, of his academic achievements, of any of his other achievements. Reb Simcha Zisel Mikelem observes that the only thing we are told about Moshe Rabbeinu prior to his being tapped by the Rebbeinu Shalom himself as the leader of the Jewish people for the generations is about his overwhelming propensity toward the midah of being nosei b'olam chavero. In exactly 12 pesukim, separating Moshe as being saved by Bas Paro from Hashem's decision to take the Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, the Torah relates 4 incidents. First, Moshe leaves the ivory tower of Paro's kingdom to join his fellow Yidden and observe the plight of his Jewish brethren, who are being oppressed at the hands of the Mitzrayim. Second, Moshe witnesses a Jew and an Egyptian fighting and comes to the aid of his fellow Jew. Third, Moshe witnesses 2 Jews fighting and chastises the aggressor. Finally, the Torah relates that Moshe went to Midian and observed Reuel's daughters being mistreated by the shepherds, whereby he came to their aid. Indeed, the only thing we learn about Moshe Rabbeinu prior to his being spoken to by the Rebbeinu Shalom at the Sneh is that he is eminently committed to being nosei b'olam chavero, eminently committed to addressing the needs, concerns, and plight of his fellow man, a characteristic divinely deemed to qualify Moshe as the Manig Yisrael for the generations. The measure of a leader is determined by his inclination toward hishtatvus b'olam chavero. We are privileged this morning to have with us Rabbi Ahron Lopiansky Shlita, Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva of Greater Washington, and beloved Rebbe of my dear friend Dovid Goder. The story of an American bacher from the Lower East Side, leaving home to learn in Mir Yeshiva in the early 70s and essentially staying forever, has the makings of a Mishpacha magazine article. But it is Rav Ahron's other commitments and sense of nosei b'olam chavero that motivate his presence here this morning. You see, it was Rav Ahron Lopiansky who took a leading role in the outreach and education of Russian Jewry in the late 80s and early 90s. Since relocating to Silver Spring in the mid-90s, Rav Ahron has assumed responsibility for the development of the greater Silver Spring community reaching far beyond the Yeshiva Gedola. He has taken an active role in and now heads both the boys and girls high schools and has assumed achrayus for steering the elementary school as well. Additionally, Rav Lopiansky is involved in many initiatives affecting the national Frum community. As a founding editor of Klal Perspectives, Rav Ahron is at the forefront of dealing with contemporary issues and concerns on a national or perhaps global level. Most importantly, this morning anyway, is Rav Ahron's sense of hishtatvus b'olam chavero as relates to his talmidim, not simply to their accomplishments in yeshiva, but to their long-term growth and well-being, as well as their contributions and involvement in their communities, wherever they settle, and long after they leave yeshiva. A talmid related to me this week that Rav Ahron articulated at a Silver Spring alumni gathering some years back, the tremendous nachas he experiences in seeing the way in which his talmidim become meaningfully involved in their communities, accepting achrayus for the various causes and mosos with which they become involved. Dovid is forever making fond reference to recent discussions he has had with Rav Ahron, or to the way in which Rav Ahron responded to a particular dilemma Dovid had presented. This devotion to his talmidim b'chalal and to Dovid b'frat is reciprocated by Dovid's overwhelming expressions of admiration, respect, and love for his Rebbe. At this time, it is my great covet to call upon Rav Ahron Lopiansky to present the Goders with the Community Leadership Award this morning.
When I was asked to come, I was given very, very strict warnings about 5-minute limits. I was explained it's not a brisker 5 minutes, no achtel, no shosmanias, no ifs, ands, and buts, 5 minutes, Eastern Standard Time, and Bez Hashem, I had a big dilemma. Should I speak about Dovid and Yehudit, or should I speak about the cause that we're here for? Not that I'm familiar with the details of it, but I know that this is something that's extremely dear to Dovid's heart, and I think I'll use the few minutes for that. I wanted to speak not so much, I've heard the testimony about this organization. Every time I meet Dovid, he talks about a new project and new needs and so on. I want to talk about the word family services and why I think that that describes it in ways that other words don't describe it. We make bracha in the morning, personal brachas, pokeach ivrim, malbish arumim. Those are all brachas. A person wakes up in the morning and he becomes aware of the fact that he has so many gifts from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, personal gifts. Later on, in Yotze Or, we speak about more sweeping, universal gifts of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, light, malachim, Zereat Stokos, Matzmiach Yeshuos. But the brachas in the morning when a person wakes up is we become, first thing on waking, we become aware of ourselves and what we have in our gifts. There's one bracha that seems to stand out as not really belonging there. We say, Roka ha'aretz al hamoyim. Kadosh Baruch Hu puts land on the sea. And that's something that belongs in the more sweeping Psukei Zimra. I think, and maybe with some Jewish allowance, I remember, Baruch Hashem, we don't live in earthquake-prone country, but I've twice in my life experienced that in Yerushalayim there was an earthquake many years ago, and in Maryland there was a small earthquake. And the sense of helplessness, the sense of not being able to stand on terra firma, it dissolves your entire sense of self. It's not a particular issue. It's like, I have nothing because I stand on nothing. On a personal level, the terra firma a person stands on is family. A child that grows up, his sense of being, of standing, of having anything and everything is family. When a father, lo aleinu, can't be a breadwinner, the problem is not only the sense of, where's the meal coming from, but it's bigger than that. The father's ability to provide is a certain terra firma. It's a basis. And when a child senses that his father can't do it, there's an incredible sense of void and limbo, and nothing makes a difference. If a mother becomes emotionally detached from children, family, a child feels he's in a void. There are times when, for different reasons, children become detached from family. And again, nothing is worth anything if they don't have what to stand on. You can't, you're helpless. It's just like, I remember that sense, and it was a minor earthquake, but if you've never experienced it before, you all of a sudden, if there's not an anchor to reality, then everything is collapsing. And that leaves a mark, a deep mark for life. A helplessness, a disconnect. Almost every problem somewhere is rooted in that sense of a lack of solid foundation. On a personal level, I'm in the year for my mother. My parents were Holocaust survivors. And one of the greatest gifts they gave to me was that despite their sense, their own loss and having nothing, we always had a sense of family and strength and so on. A ger, the reason why we have so much obligation to reach out to a ger, David Ezra says the word ger comes from gargir. It's like a solitary unit. It's not part of a cluster, it's not part of a tree or anything like it. So when you deal with families and you understand, and as the presentations and as the speakers and as so many conversations with Dovid, when you understand that there are problems that strike at the heart of a family, and when those problems happen, every single one in the family is a gargir. He's helpless. There's a lack of the ability to function totally. And to have the sensitivity to understand it is probably the greatest, I'd say it's much more than chesed, it's the greatest responsibility and obligation we have. I've known Dovid for almost 20 years now, and Yehudit since she married in, and Dovid is extremely close. Dovid always had, even as a bacher, he had a sense of responsibility. Anyone that he felt he's responsible for, he took it like an adult, the sense that he has to take care of it, and an exquisite sense of responsibility for the type of issues we spoke about. It's a tremendous nachas ruach. If there's one message we try to give in the yeshiva, it's responsibility and an understanding of life and social fabric, and to have that sense of achrayus. Every time we meet, every time we talk, it's always about something that's on his shoulders, that he takes a very personal sense of achrayus. It's a tremendous nachas ruach that you and Yehudis are being recognized for what you do. It's what we try to give over in yeshiva, and Baruch Hashem, you are most of your own, much more than we gave. Congratulations to you, and ashrecha, and keep doing weiter.
I will be very quick. First of all, thank you, Rabbi Lopiansky. This was a complete surprise to me. Had I known, I certainly wouldn't have wanted Rebbe to be matriach this morning. But I very much appreciate you being here. I actually owe an apology to the therapists in the room. In the video, I made reference to simple therapy. Now, Mrs. East, when I spoke to her last week, very accurately pointed out to me that no therapy is simple, and that while intense case management might help those in the greatest crisis, it's the therapy that gives people the tools they need to cope and function on their own. And this leads me to the very first thank you, which is the incredibly dedicated staff led by Mrs. East. Unfortunately, Mrs. East couldn't be here this morning. Baruch Hashem, she's celebrating a simcha, her own grandchild. But we're really grateful to her and the entire staff for the role they play in the community. I also want to thank the board, led by the president, Mrs. Fran Lichtenstein. There you are, Fran. I've observed the board spend hours upon hours of their time committed to the agency and the community, and their incredible commitment deserves our thanks. Thank you to the extraordinary members of the fundraising committee, and I'm going to go through them. Yaakov Brisman, Ezra David, Aaron Foxbrunner, Alan Gutman, Bizi Halberstam, Daniel Paikus, frankly, under the leadership of our General and Commanding Officer, Moshe Lukens. The commitment and Mesiras Nefesh of this group of Yedidim and their spouses is really extraordinary. JFS and the community are indebted to all of you. Specifically to my dear friend Moshe and his Eishes Chayil. You've redefined the meaning of Oskim B'Tzarchei Tzibur, not only for JFS, but for multiple other Mosdos. I don't know how you do it, but whatever the secret sauce is, my bracha to you and your family is that the Rabbanu Shalom give you continued bracha, hatzlacha, and nachas for your extraordinary avodas hakodesh. Finally, a tremendous thank you to everyone in the room and those who aren't in the room but who really participated in making this campaign possible. Passaic Clifton is an extraordinary community. It's a place, it's been said here before this morning, where people are really nosei b'olam chaveiro. JFS would never be able to function without the support of the entire community and the way the community came together and the way people are moser nefesh is an inspiration to all of us. Thank you all for coming. May we continue to share in each other's simchas and as Rebbetzin Weissman said on the video, may we quickly be zocha to the Geula Shlema, no longer suffer from the tsaros that require a JFS.